How you doing there? Welcome back to Babble on Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chof Gimel, Daf 23 of Masechta Chullin. Friends, once again, I am not anticipating a long daf over here. We have three scenarios that are brought up by Reb Zera. In all three, there's going to be some kind of a Safek that we are trying to understand. Let's discuss them. So the first one is Safek birds. So for example, we talked about yesterday that when it comes to Torim and Bnei Yonah, that a tor is a turtle dove. Did we start talking about this yesterday? Yeah, yesterday we started talking about it. That a tor is a turtle dove, and turtle doves are brought as korbanos when they are big, when they're older, big. Bnei Yonah are young doves, and they are offered when they are little, when they are young. Now, in both of those cases, we had said that there's this kind of no man's land, that once these birds grow and are big and kind of reach this stage where the feathers at the back of their neck become yellow. So they kind of hit this in-between stage where they're too big for the Bnei Yonah, but still too small for the Torim. And the question is, how do we understand this middle stage? Is it that it's either big or it's small? We just don't know. So we just don't know what to do with it. But I mean, it's objectively either big or small. We just don't know which one it is. So that's the suffix. So therefore we say we have to treat it as too big for the Bnei Yonah, we have to treat it as too small for the Torim. Or is it literally just a third option? You have small, you have big, and then there's something in the middle, and in this middle stage, it's not good for anything. So anyways, we're gonna be discussing how to understand that middle ground when it comes to Torim and Bnei Yonah and what the nafkaminas are. And we're gonna do something similar for sheep. Right, a keves, of course, is a sheep in its first year. An ayil is a sheep in its second year. There is, however, something called a palgis, which is that for the first month of the second year of a sheep's life, it is actually neither a keves nor an ayil. So we are going to discuss how to understand this palgis situation, this palgis stage. And finally, Safek chometz, right? We always think about chometz and matzah, but there's also something called si'ur. Si'ur is something that you're not chayiv kares for, and it isn't. The question is how to understand it. It's not matzah anymore. It's leavened past that, but it's not quite chometz yet. So Reb Zera is going to bring up these three scenarios: Safek birds, Safek sheep, and Safek chometz, and we will discuss. So come join me, and let's discuss Safek birds, Safek sheep, and Safek chometz. Friends, we begin on Daf Chof Beis Amid Beis, about maybe close to 10 lines from the bottom of Chof Beis Amid Beis by Reb Zera. Reb Zera asks the following question: A person says, I am going to bring a korban olas ha'of. A person donates to the Beis Hamikdash and commits to offering as a offering an olas ha'of, a bird ola offering. And he says it'll be I'll either bring a tor or I will bring a ben Yonah. He says I'll bring either one. He doesn't commit to specifically a tor or specifically a ben Yonah. He says I'll bring either one. So he has options. He could bring a tor, he could bring a ben Yonah, whatever he wants, whatever he could find, whatever's available, whatever it is. The Hevi, and what did he bring? He brought two birds, but two Safek birds. Tchila satziu v'shaboze v'shaboze. Mau. Oh, he brought two birds, one tor and one ben Yonah. However, both of them were in this in-between stage. Both of them were bigger than. Both of them were in this stage where the feathers at the back of the neck began to become yellow, which is this in-between state where we said, what did the Mishnah say? Did the Mishnah pasal? Yeah, tchilas atziu bazeo vazeh pasal. The Mishnah had said that it's this stage when the feathers at the back of the neck begin to become yellow. It's no good for either one. It's no good for the ben Yonahs, it's no good for the tors. Because ben Yonahs, of course, are offered when they are young. And once the yellowing starts happening, we say, it's too old. And the tors are offered when they're bigger. And when this yellowing starts happening, they're not quite big enough. We said yesterday, once they become kind of this shiny gold kind of thing. reddish, goldish, shiny-ish thing, that's when they become okay. So the question is, how do we relate to this phase, to this stage, this beginning to yellow but not quite gold, that in-between stage? How do we relate to it? What are the options? Let's talk through the options. One option is to say that, well, it's either there's no things are binary. There's no third option. There's two options. Either it's little or it's big. And therefore, during this phase, the beginning to become yellow until gold stage, I'll just refer to it as the stage or the phase. Maybe phase is better. Stage is maybe better. Stage or phase. So one way to look at it is to say it's binary. Look, it's either small or it's big. Now, during this stage that we're talking about, this middle stage, it isn't a third option. It's either still small or it's already big. We just don't know. So therefore we say, if you're offering a Ben Yonah, don't offer it in this stage because it might already be considered big. And if you're offering a Tor, don't offer it in this stage because it might still be considered small. We simply don't know how to relate to it. Now, in our scenario, however, our friend said that he's going, in our example, the friend that we've been using in our example, i.e. the person in our example, had committed to bring one Olas Ha'of. And he said, I'll offer either a Tor or a Ben Yonah. And he brings two birds. One is a Tor and one is a Yonah. And both are in this middle stage. So if we say, look, things are binary. In this middle stage, the bird is either big or it's small. We just don't know. Well, in this case, he covered all of his bases. He brought a Tor, and he's bringing two birds. They're both in this middle stage. But to cover his bases, he brought two instead of one. One is a Tor, one is a Yonah. So in case during this stage they're considered big, well, he'll be Yotze with the Tor. In case during this stage they're still considered small, he'll be Yotze with the Ben Yonah. So that's one perspective, is that it's a Safek. It's binary. It's either big or small. We don't know, however, so therefore we say don't offer a bird during this stage because we won't know how to relate to it. But if you bring two of them, so that either way you're covered. But there's another way to look at it. The other way to look at it is that there is a third option. That there's small, there's big, and then there's this middle ground, this third middle ground, which is like a third, it's a third option. It's not small, it's not big. It's not, and therefore, Bnei Yonah, which need to be small, it's not small anymore. Torim, which need to be big, it's not big yet. It's this middle ground, it's this third thing. So if that's the case, even though you brought two birds, it's not going to make any difference because you brought two birds in this middle stage. Neither of them are big, neither of them are small, and therefore, it is, so you brought a Tor and you brought a Ben Yonah, but the Tor needed to be big, not medium size, and the Ben Yonah needed to be small, not medium size. So if we say that during this middle stage it's a Safek, well then by bringing one of each bird, you were motzi midei Safek, you covered your bases. But if we say that during this stage it's a third option, well then by bringing one of each bird, it made no difference because they're both in the intermediate stage. We need either a big one or for the Tor or a small one for the Ben Yonah, and it's neither. Okay. So let us start from the beginning. By Reb Zeire asks a question. A person says, I am going to offer a Olas Ha'of. Either I'm going to offer a big Tor or a small Yonah. And he brought two birds, one Tor, one Ben Yonah, but both were in this middle stage. What's the halacha? Do we say Sfeik? Do we say it's binary? We just, during this stage, we simply don't know if it's big or if it's small. Well, by bringing one of each, you covered your bases. V'nofik, and he is Yotze because he brought one of each. So if it's big, he'll be Yotze with the Tor, and if it's considered small, he'll be Yotze with the Ben Yonah. Odilma, or perhaps Biryava. It's a third option. It's a new invention, a in-betweener bird. Velonafik, in which case he's not Yotze, because he needed to bring either a big Tor or a small Yonah, but he brought neither. He brought an intermediate size of both. Omar Rav says Rav Toshma Kamanir. We learned in the Brisa yesterday. Very interesting. We had learned in a Brisa yesterday. If you just hop up like 5 or 10 lines or so, we had learned yesterday. The Torah itself says, right? I'm recording this in Erev Shavuos tonight. Ma'amad Sinai, Chag Shavuos. The Torah that we received at Mount Sinai, it says in the Torah, Minatorim, from the turtle doves, velo kol atorim, not all turtle doves. Min bnei Yonah, from the bnei Yonah, velo kol bnei Yonah, not all bnei Yonah. Prat the tchilas atziv shabazav v'shapasul, that the Brisa had said that the Torah is excluding this middle phase both by Taurs and by Yonah. It says min atorim, from a subset from the turtle doves, not all turtle doves. From the young doves, not all young doves. Which are the turtle doves and young doves that the Torah itself is excluding? This middle phase, this in between phase. The Torah itself is excluding. Now, the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't have any suffix. If it was a binary thing that during this middle phase it's either big or it's small, we as humans just don't know. The Rebbeinu Shalom knows, and the Rebbeinu Shalom wouldn't have to write in the Torah, well, I don't know which one it is, so don't do it. No, the Rebbeinu Shalom knows. He wouldn't have to write anything in the Torah. He would just say, bring a big turtle dove or a young dove. He wouldn't have to write anything good about it. He doesn't have suffix. So from the fact that the Torah specifically said, bring either a big turtle dove or a small dove, right? Dove, a young dove, don't bring this middle phase. Clearly it means that this middle phase isn't just a suffix, it's a separate thing. He's saying, look, I want big or small, none of this medium-sized thing. It's a separate thing, I don't want it. So from the fact that the Torah is saying, here's this thing, don't bring it, it's clearly a separate entity. It's not just simply a suffix of we don't know if it's big or small. It's a separate thing. Right, so 3 lines to the bottom of Chav Beis and Beis. I understand Bir Yahave if we say that this in-between stage is it's its own separate thing. Shapir Gevaldig, I understand the Torah is saying, okay, bring big, not medium. Bring small, not medium. But Eli Omar Sfek Ave, but if you say that we just don't know if it's considered big or if it's considered small, but it's one of the two options, what, we need a pasuk to exclude a suffix? The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't have a suffix. He wouldn't have to write in his Torah about, well, I'm not sure about this, so don't do it. Hashem knows. He wouldn't have to write that. It's our suffix. We wouldn't need it to be written into the Torah, so it must be it's a third option. It says the Gemara, not necessarily. You can say that it is, in fact, a suffix. You can, in fact, say that this middle stage is either big or small, we just don't know. So why would the Torah have to write it? For a different reason. The pasuk, when it says min atorim, min bnei Yonah, to exclude this middle ground, I'm sorry, so it's not actually to exclude the middle ground, it is to exclude nirva and ne'evad. It says min atorim, from the turtle doves, not all turtle doves, a subset of turtle doves. Min bnei Yonah, a subset of Bnei Yonah, not all of them. Why? Which one's not? Nirva, if somebody decided to have sexual relations with this pigeon, okay, turtle dove, young dove, or it was worshipped as a deity, it was worshipped as a getchke, avodah zarah. So those don't offer those. In terms of the suffix, the Torah didn't need to write about that because there's no suffix before the Rebbeinu Shalom. We could say that this middle stage is a suffix. We don't know if it's big or small, so we say not to offer it. And potentially, if you brought one of each, you cover your bases. In terms of the pasuk, it says Minator Min Bnei Yonah. It's not coming to exclude that. It's not coming to exclude the back of the neck yellow. It's coming to exclude Erev Arayis and Avodah Zarah when it comes to Torah Min Bnei Yonah. Because I may have thought to say the following: the pasuk in the context of mums, animals with mums that cannot be offered, it says kimashchosam bam baem mumbam. So there's two key words there, mum, but also mashchosam. What's mashchosam? Whenever it says hashchasa, like over here, hashchasa means arayis, like nirva, or avodah zarah, like ne'avad. Tvar erva, how do we know that hashchasa is a reference to tvar erva? Because it says by the door of Babble, it says, Tichsiv ki hishchis kol basar is darko al haaretz. That by the door of Babble it says ki hishchis, hashchasa, bashchasam. Ki hishchis kol basar is darko al haaretz. That by the door of Babble, one of the grave issues with the door of Babble was gilui arayis. Avodas kochavim dichsiv, and how do you know that hashchasa refers to avodah zarah as well? As the pasuk says, pentashchisun hashchasa v'asisem lochem pesel, that maybe you'll hashchasa and make a getchke, make a pesel, make avodah zarah. So we see that mashchasam could refer to avodah zarah, like ne'evad in our example by the birds, or it could refer to gilui arayos, like nirva. Now here's the thing. I could make the argument, kol she'amum posel bo, dvar erva posel, dvar erva b'avodas kochavim posel bo. I could think that, well, the pasuk says, ki mashchasam bom mum bom, ki mashchasam bohem mum bom, that we have mashchasam and we have mum. Mashchasam is avodah zarah and gilui arayos. Mums are mums. So I might think avodah zarah and gilui arayos are only showstoppers in scenarios where a mum is a showstopper. But as we know, mums don't apply to birds. Right? Tammuz v'zachrus b'behema vein tammuz v'zachrus b'ofris. That mums don't apply, right? They don't have to be unblemished. Tamim, they don't have to be unblemished by birds. Now there's a separate thing, right? The pasuk, of course, says in Sefer Malachi, "Hakriveinu lefechosecha," right? That you have to offer something that you would feel comfortable offering to the governor, to some officer, i.e., don't offer a bird that's like missing a leg or something like that. But otherwise, mums don't apply to birds. So I might think that since the pasuk juxtaposes mashchasam and mum, since mums don't apply to birds, maybe ne'evad and nirva don't apply to birds either. Since by birds there are no mums by birds, ein dvar erva ve avodas kochavim posel bo, maybe nirva and ne'evad should be irrelevant and you should be able to offer them nonetheless. Bani office hol v'lo posel behu muma, since by birds there are no mums. The Amar Mar tamas v'zachus b'beim ben tamas v'zachus b'office, that there is a requirement of being unblemished, or at least by certain animals being dafka male, but those don't apply to birds. So ema dvar erva v'avodas kochavim nami lo lifsol b'hu. So maybe gilui arayos and avodah zarah is not relevant to birds. Nirva and ne'evad could be okay. Kamaj malah, and therefore it says no. Min atorim, min bnei ayona, not all Torahs, not all ben yonas, to exclude ne'evad, to exclude nirva. Okay, so what just happened? We had a question about this middle phase, right? How do we view this middle phase? Is it considered a Safek, or is it considered a binary Safek, or is it considered kind of a third option? In the end, we didn't kind of resolve it. We said, we tried to resolve it by saying, well, it says min atorim or min bnei ayona, therefore must be this third stage, right? This third thing that's being excluded. However, we said no. Bichlal min atorim min bnei ayona is talking about you can't offer nirva and ne'evad. In terms of the question about this middle ground, is it a Safek or is it a third, or is it kind of its own thing? It's still unresolved. We now have a similar Gemara, this time with sheep. By Reb Zera, once again, it's Reb Zera who is asking the questions. If a person commits to bringing a korban, either an ayil or a sheep, Vevi palgis, but he didn't bring a ayil or a kevis, he brought a palgis. Mau, what is the halacha? How do we view what just happened? So, a keves, a sheep, whenever we talk about a keves, we're talking about a sheep that is in its first year, for the first 12 months of its life. When we talk about a ayil, a ram, we talk about a sheep that is in its second year of life and beyond. However, the truth is that is not a fully accurate description of an ayil, simply saying from its second year, because the truth is for the first month of its second year, for the 13th month of its life, it's something called a palgis. And it's neither a keves nor a ayil. Now, if you have a person who says, I'm going to bring as a korban a keves, or I'm going to bring an ayil, and now he brings a palgis, how do we relate to this palgis? Do we say, like we were saying by the birds, do we say that the palgis is a Safek? It's a binary. It's either an ayil or a keves. We just don't know how to treat this 13th month, so we just say that it's a Safek. But the fact of the matter is, it's one or the other. There's no middle ground. There's no third option. And therefore, you have this person says, I'm going to bring either a keves or an ayil. He brings a palgis. The fact of the matter is, a palgis is either an ayil or a keves. We simply don't know, but you brought one of them, right? The palgis is one of them. You said you're going to bring either a keves or an ayil. You brought a palgis, which is one of them. We don't know which one, but it is one of them. So you're going to be yotze. Or do we say that no, a palgis is in fact a third option, and therefore that's unacceptable? You said you were going to bring a keves or an ayil. You brought a palgis. That's a third option. You didn't say you were going to bring that, and it's not going to work at all. So that's our question here. So by Reb Zera, once again, Reb Zera asked the question of Oimer, Ari Olai, Olas Bema Mina Ayil O Mina Keves. A person says, I'm going to bring a korban ola either from an ayil or from a keves. Vehevi palgis mau. Aliba de Rabbi Yochanan now. According to Rabbi Yochanan, lo tibailach. The Amibiria have it. Okay, we can see it's a machlekes. There's two perspectives over here when it comes to this palgis. There's the perspective of Rabbi Yochanan, and there's the perspective of Bar Pada. Rabbi Yochanan says that a palgis is its own thing. So if a palgis is its own thing, we know our answer. There's no questions. Obviously, you're not yotze. You said you're going to bring a keves or a ayil. You brought a palgis. It's neither of them. Obviously, you're not yotze for your commitment. Again, according to Rabbi Yochanan, lo tibailach. There's no question. Domer birya because Rabbi Yochanan says it's a third thing. It's its own thing. It's neither a keves nor an ayil. You're not yotze. Disnan that we learned in a Mishnah in Masechta Para. Of course, the Mishnah is in Masechta Para. The first parak of Masechta Para talks about these kinds of things. What's considered a calf? What's considered a cow? What's considered a keves? What's considered an ola? What's a palgis? Things like that. So the Mishnah in the first parak of Masechta Para says, Hikrivo, if you offered a palgis, maybe all of niske ayil ve'inalo mizivcho. The Mishnah in Masechta Para says that if one needs to offer a keves or a ayil, and he offers a palgis, so the Mishnah says, what do you do in terms of nisachim? So the nisachim that you offer are the nisachim of an ayil, right? A keves would be 1 isaron of flour and 3 logs of oil and 3 logs of wine. For an ayil, for a ram, the nisachim are 2 isarons of flour, 4 logs of oil, and 4 logs of wine. So the nisachim are different. So the Mishnah in Parah says that for a palgis, maybe all of niske ayil. You bring the nisachim of an ayil, the larger amount. 2 isarons of flour, 4 logs of oil, and 4 logs of wine. Vein ola lo mizivcha. And if you said, I'm going to bring a sheep, or I'm going to bring an ayil, or either one of them, you are not yotze. You have to bring a new animal. V'amar Rabbi Yochanan, and says Rabbi Yochanan, oh la'ayil l'rabas es apalgis. And Rabbi Yochanan says that when the pasuk says, oh la'ayil taise mincha solis, etc. So the O, it doesn't just say la'ayil, but it says oh la'ayil. The O is coming to include a palgis. And just like we said earlier, if a palgis was a Safek, that we don't know if it's a ayil or if it's a keves, so the Rabbanan Shalom wouldn't write into the Torah the word O to include a palgus. Out of the Rabbanan Shalom knows if it's an ayil or if it's a keves. If we say it's a Safek, it means it's binary. It's either an ayil or it's a keves. We simply don't know. But if that's the case, the Rabbanan Shalom wouldn't have to write the word O in order to teach about a palgus. A palgus is either just a ayil, which has the nisachim of an ayil, or a keves, which has the nisachim of a keves. You wouldn't need to learn it out specially. Says Rabbi Yochanan that O is coming to teach us about a palgus that has the nisachim of an ayil. Says O la ayil, that a palgus also has the nisachim of an ayil, and says, and therefore from the fact that Rabbi Yochanan learns out the nisachim of a palgus from the riboy of a word in the Torah of the word O, clearly a palgus is its own thing, and the Torah is going to say that when it comes to palgus, which is its own category of sheep, its nisachim are like that of a ram. Okay, so according to Rabbi Yochanan, a palgus is its own thing. Okay. But the question is really when it comes to bar pada, because bar pada says that a palgus is taka a Safek. We're not sure if a palgus is an ayil or if it's a keves. So from that perspective, from that perspective alone, the story doesn't end there. But if the story did end there, we would say, well, if a palgus, we're not sure if it's a keves or if it's a or if it's an ayil, but it is binary. It is either one. Well, if you said that you're going to bring a keves or a ayil and you brought a palgus, well, you brought one of them. You don't know which one, but you brought one of them, so you'd be yotze. So to Amr Maisi Umasni, that Bar Pada says, so what do you do in this case? You have a palgus over here. It's either an ayil or it's a keves. So you say, look, I have here a palgus. We don't know if the palgus is considered a keves or an ayil. So I'm bringing the larger amount of nisachim. I'm bringing 2 isarins of flour. I'm bringing 4 loaves of wine, 4 loaves of oil. And look, if a palgus is an ayil, is a ram, well, great. I brought the perfect amount of nisachim for a ram. And if it is a keves, so then one of the isarins of flour should be for the nisachim of the keves, and 3 of the loaves should be 3 of the loaves of oil, 3 of the loaves of wine should be for the keves, and the leftover log of oil, the leftover log of wine, and the leftover isarin, that should just be a nidava. So do we say be'ayil vekeves masne bebirya lo masne? So do we say that Bar Pada's Safek is solely about, is this palgus an ayil or is it a keves? If that's the case, that it's one or the other, we just don't know. So you would be yotze your nether. You said you're going to bring either a keves or an ayil. You brought a palgus, which is one of them. We just don't know. So you're yotze. Oh dilma, but perhaps bebirya nami masne. Maybe there is actually a third angle here. Maybe Bar Pada mamish doesn't know. Maybe Bar Pada doesn't know, is a palgus an ayil? Is a palgus a keves? You know what? Maybe it's neither. Maybe it's its own thing. And therefore, he would have to make the Tanai, look, if it's an ayil, I brought the perfect amount of nesachim for an ayil. If it's a keves, so then the extras should be a nedava. And if it's a palgus, and a palgus is its own thing, it's neither a keves nor an ayil, well then, all of the nesachim should be a nedava, because it's neither, it would be neither the nesachim of a keves nor the nesachim of ayil, in which case it's all nedava. If it is in fact a third option, all of the nesachim should be nedava. Teku, we said we don't. We push it, don't. No, it's unresolved according to Bar Pada about this Safek, right? If by bringing a palgus, you would mimela be yotze because it's either a keves or an ayil, or maybe there is actually a possibility it's its own thing. So this is unresolved. And now we move on to the third and final section / Safek of today's daf, and that is a Safek about chometz. By Reb Zera, once again, Reb Zera asks, Ha'omer are olai lachme toda min achometz o min amatzah vevi siur mahu. Very, very interesting. So you have a fellow. He says, I am going to bring 10 loaves of a korban toda. Very peculiar kind of case, right? So a korban toda, as we know, Masechta Zvachim and Menachos already, that a korban toda is a type of korban shlamim essentially, and it's brought with 40 types of bread. 30 of them are matzah, and 10 of them are chometz. So 30 of them are matzah, 10 of them are chometz. Now, this fellow says, I'm going to bring 10 toda breads of either chometz or of matzah. What does he bring? 10 loaves of siur. And siur is kind of some in-between stage of like in-between. It's no longer matzah, but it's not quite chometz yet. So now, Reb Zera asks, Ha'omer, a person says, olai lachmi toda. I'm going to bring 10 toda loaves. Min chometz o min matzah, and those loaves can either be chometz loaves or matzah loaves, either one. Ve'evi siur, but he brings this kind of in-between stuff. Mao, what is the, how do we treat it? Siur diman. So first of all, whose definition of siur? What exactly is this siur? So there's a machlokes in the Mishnah, in Masechta Pesachim, between the Tanakama, who we're saying here is Reb Meir. So between Reb Meir and Reb Yehuda, Reb Meir says that siur is when this dough becomes to turn white, right? Rashi says, Dichsifu panav. They become to turn white. They haven't started cracking. That it's not chometzy enough that like it started to like developing kind of cracks in it, but it is kind of starting to change color and become white. So at that point already, Rameir would say it's considered siur, and you'd be chayiv makis for consuming it, according to Rameir. Rabbi Yehuda says that is not yet siur. Siur is one step further once it starts developing cracks like that of a grasshopper's like antennae, kind of like two cracks going off in different directions, not over crisscrossing, overlapping, deeply connected cracks. That would be chometz. But like two cracks going off in different directions, kind of very early stage of chometzing, that is siur. But before that, it would still be considered matzah, and you're not chayiv makis for eating siur. So now, actually not again, but now, siur daman, whose definition? So when we're talking about siur, are we talking about siur as defined by Reb Meir, when it's turning white? Or are we talking about siur as defined by Reb Yehuda, which is it starts at the very beginning of developing cracks? So siur daman, siur Reb Meir, if we're talking about Reb Meir's definition of siur, when it starts becoming white, the Reb Yehuda, well, if we're talking about this dough that is starting to become white, and based on Reb Yehuda's perspective towards that, his perspective is that would just simply be matzah. There's no Safek about that. Matzah ma'ayiso. According to Reb Yehuda, when the dough begins to turn white, it's still chometz. It's still matzah. So there's no Safek there. Now, Reb Yehuda, and if we're talking about Reb Yehuda's definition of siur, which is when it starts to develop cracks, well, according to Reb Meir, so the Reb Meir chometzu. That's chometz. Reb Meir says siur is before that, is when it starts turning white. Once it has cracks, it's chometz. So there's no question there either. Vidra Reb Meir, the Reb Meir, and if it is Reb Meir's definition of siur, which is when the dough starts becoming white, well, Reb Meir would say that at that point, you already chayev makis for that. Right, at that point, once it starts turning white, it's siur. And siur, you chayev makis for. What do you chayev makis for? Well, what are you going to warn them about? You say, well, you're going to be chayev makis for eating chometz on Pesach. So if that's the case, then now you're not chayev kares. I think that's because this siur is like not something that you want to eat. So you're not going to be chayev kares for it. But it's not something that's normally eaten. But it is nonetheless chometz, and you will be chayev makis for it. So if that's the case, it's chometz. So again, what's the question? It's chometz. So midilaki alef, and the fact that you'd be chayev makis for eating it, chometzu. It's chometz according to Reb Meir. Ella to Reb Yehuda, Reb Yehuda. My. Okay, so rather, it's Reb Yehuda's definition of siur, which is that it begins developing cracks, not deep overlapping cracks, but separate kind of cracks. So that's what's called siur. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're not chayav makis for it. So the question is, what's the deal with the siur? Is it some kind of a Safek chometz, Safek matzah? It's either chometz or it's matzah. We just simply don't know. And therefore, if he says, I'm going to bring 10 loaves of chometz or 10 loaves of matzah, and he brings siur, are we saying that it is either chometz or matzah? It's for sure one of them. We just don't know, and therefore he's yotze. So do we say Sfek avya vinafik mimanavshach? In which case he's yotze, because if it's chometz, so he brought 10 chometz loaves. If it's matzah, he brought 10 matzah loaves. Or Dilma, or perhaps Bir Yahu, or maybe siur is its own thing. And he said he was going to bring either chometz loaves or matzah loaves, and in the end he brought this siur loaves, which is a separate thing. Vilonafik, in which case he's not yotze. Now, frankly, Gemara, who cares? Because at the end of the day, doesn't Rav Huna say, a person who says, I'm going to bring the breads of a korban toda. Right? A korban toda is essentially an animal sacrifice that is offered along with 40 types of breads. So maybe toda v'lachma. So a person who says, I'm going to bring the breads of a korban toda, similar to what this person says, I'm going to bring 10. I mean, it's weird because he says I'm going to bring 10 loaves, but he's just committing to the loaves of the toda. But nonetheless, says Reb Meir, says Reb Huna, that a person says, I'm going to bring the loaves of a korban toda, you have to bring a whole korban toda. So you can't just bring 10, you would have to bring all 40. You would have to, mamish, bring a toda, korban toda, an animal, with 40 loaves of bread. And since when he says, I'm going to bring the loaves of a korban toda, he's now chayiv to bring an animal along with 40 breads, 30 matzah breads, 10 chometz breads. Now, even if you say that siur is either chometz or matzah, we just don't know, that's not really going to help us, because this person, when he says, I'm going to bring these toda breads, he now needs to bring a korban toda with all 40 loaves, and now he's got these 10 loaves that he doesn't know if they're either, sure, they're siur, so they're either chometz or matzah, but he doesn't know which ones they are. So he's still going to have to bring 30 matzah breads and 10 chometz breads, because he simply doesn't know what these 10 that he has are. So he doesn't know, if they're chometz, so then he doesn't have to bring 10 chometz, but they might be matzah. And if they're matzah, he doesn't have to bring 10 of the matzah ones, but they might be chometz. He doesn't know what they are. So you're still going to have to bring all 40 loaves. So what difference does it make? So hello, yada I gavra ichometzu delesi matzah. He doesn't know if this siur is chometz, and therefore he needs to bring just the matzah loaves. Imatzahu, or if these 10 loaves are matzahs, delesi chometz, which means that he still needs to bring chometz loaves as well. He simply doesn't know. So l'tzricha de amare alai chala liftor todaso shel ploni. Okay, so Gemara says, well, maybe he's not committing to bring his own korban toda. He's saying, look, my friend is bringing a korban toda, and I'm going to bring 10 loaves for him, and these loaves are siur, and now we don't know if they're chometz or matzah. Sof halo yada I gavra I chometz u'delese matzah I matzah u'delese chometz. But still, what difference does it make? So his friend needs to bring a korban toda along with 40 breads. This guy shows up. He says, "Here, I'm going to contribute 10 loaves. What are they? Siur. What's siur? We don't know. Might be chometz, might be matzah. What difference does it make? Still, the friend is still going to have to bring 40 loaves, because these siur loaves are useless, since we don't know if they're chometz or matzah. We don't know which cheshbon to apply them to. The 10 chometz ones, the 30 matzah ones, we don't know. So l'tzricha de lo amar liftor. Okay, here, so rather, it's not talking about a situation where he said, so how about, instead of talking about what it's not talking about, let's talk about what he's talking about. It's talking about a situation where he simply says, I'm going to bring 10 lachmei todas. Now his friend is bringing a korban toda. His friend is bringing a korban toda, an animal with 40 loaves, and he says, "I'm going to get on that bandwagon. I'm going to bring my own 10 loaves and kind of piggyback on his korban, on his korban toda. I'm going to bring these 10 loaves of siur." And the question is, do we say that it's a Safek, that it's certainly either chometz or matzah? He said, "I'm going to bring either chometz or matzah," and he is bringing either chometz or matzah, because siur is one of the two. We just don't know which one. In which case, so mepekavri de nidro nafik, do we say that he is going to be yotze with that, or lo nafik, or maybe he's not yotze, because maybe the siur is the third thing, and he says he's going to bring either chometz or matzah. He brought siur, it's the third thing. Teku, it is unresolved. Okay, fine. Well, that was Daf Chof Gimel of Masechta Chullin. On Daf Chof Gimel of Masechta Chullin, we basically learned about 3 Safek scenarios. We learned about Safek birds, right? If you bring birds that are at this stage where the feathers on the back of their neck are beginning to come yellow. So how do we treat those birds? Do we treat them as it's either considered big or small, we just don't know, or maybe it's its own separate category? That was unresolved. We discussed Safek sheep, right? A kevis is in its first year. A ram is beginning, after 13 months and on. What about in that 13 months? It's called a palgus. Do we treat the palgus as definitely an ayil or a kevis? We just don't know which one. Or is it its own thing? That was unresolved. And the final Safek, which was also unresolved, is how do we treat siur? Do we treat siur as either chometz or matzah? We just don't know which. Or is siur its own category? Again, that was unresolved. Well, have a great day, friends. I'll catch you tomorrow for Daf Chof Daled of Masechta Chullin.